That's very interesting. And I found out from my grandma before she passed. I said, do I have Native American roots? Because I certainly don't look like it. And my family's about as white as it gets. And she says, well, yes, you do. Your great, great, great grandma was a medicine woman and she was a shaman. And she actually saved my triple great grandpa's life. He almost died with pneumonia. And the Western doctors said that he was going to maybe have 24 hours. Well, she came over, mixed some stuff up from the cabinets, and the next day he was walking around and they ended up falling in love. So I guess I'm a byproduct of that. And the DNA figured it's like your DNA holds information. But dude, it's interesting because you say that, Cliff, because the last time I did it, there was actually like these, I call them guardians, because I was going like in these loops. I was going in these, like, it was like a circle. I was going down and then I thought I was going to be stuck there forever. And then I came back up and then I went down and I thought I was going to be stuck there forever. And then I came back up. So as I was going down, like, okay, I'll never do it again. And then I'm coming back, but it's so much fun. It's so much fun. And
right.
these things were like, don't ever do this again.
Those are the machine elves.
And I was going to do it again. A few months later, I was going to do it again. And I went onto this forum and this guy just out of the blue, Cliff, totally weird, man. This guy was on this forum chatting and he sounded like he had a mental handicap by the way he was talking. And people were kind of making fun of him in the chat. And I'm like, quit giving this guy a hard time, man. He's just talking about his experiences. Well, guess what? This dude did salvia. What do you call it? Divinorum or
divinorum.
Divinorum. He did salvia divinorum and it fried his brain. This dude was married with kids, making over 100 grand a year, happy life, happy wife. He did that stuff. It fried his brain. Now he lives with his parents. He lost his family. He's mentally handicapped the rest of his life. How weird, out of the blue, the same night that I was going to do that again, months later, I go on to a forum, and this forum doesn't have anything to do with that crap. It was a conspiracy forum. So just the fact that guy was there talking was
okay, so no. Right. Well, see, it may not have been universe. It might have been the bugs. Okay. See, because you may not have seen that forum. You may not have ever read that. It may have been planted in your brains to cause the specific response that it got, which was that you didn't do the stuff anymore. I'm not suggesting you do it. Okay. Because in order to do that, you need to have gone through the curandero training of the Mexican brujos, they're healers, because you never take the divinorum straight. You never smoke that stuff straight because there's no ameliorating chemicals in there to prevent that brain harm. So you could indeed have contacted, seen just someone writing about the harm that was caused to him, because the weed can cause harm. That's why they call it loco weed. It drives horses crazy, kills cows, this sort of thing, right? Because it scrambles the neural pathways and they don't recover. It's very much like in that aspect of it, it's like intense cocaine use. If you do lots and lots and lots of cocaine, you build in new neural pathways that are incredibly difficult to overcome to get back to, quote, what you were before or normal. So you got to be careful of these psychedelics, right? And you need to have someone who knows what the hell they're doing with them. And you don't really need to experiment with the strange, it's kind of, it's worse than like gulping Tide Pods, I think, but because it does have long-term stuff. However, let's assume
I was thinking, hey, I can just go to the store. It's totally legal. It's no big deal.
Right. But let's see, you could actually try it.
Like, ah!
Right. But see, now, and here's the thing. You might be an abductee even now, right? Or they may be waiting for something, for some life experience, like, production of children or some kind of thing that in some way gets them what they want. Here's the curious part. So these beings are capable of incredibly fancy genetic manipulation, yet we're involved in a breeding program. The two don't go together, right? Usually if you're going to do GMOs, you get the GMO response in the very next generation. You don't need any intervening generations. So this is a curiousness that does keep reappearing, is that there is this breeding program going on. Another curiousness is that they need female hosts for the embryo for at least 11 weeks or so, until the end of the first trimester. They need to have the embryo in a human host during that period of time. Now, I suspect it has to do with the flood of hormones that go through during that period of time that do a level of subtle genetic engineering that makes that body a potential receptacle for a soul. I think that's a tentative conclusion. With the action is that every single one of the hybrids goes 11 weeks in a human. The action that we know from this is that they're extracted. We know that there's some need for this because the abductees themselves are basically told there's a need for this level of interaction with a human mother, but it's not needed thereafter. So they're after a specific set of hormonal responses that occur within those first 11 weeks and not thereafter. This, if I knew more about the gestation biology, might tell me more, but I haven't investigated that yet because there's so many different other things to investigate about this. And bear in mind, I actually now think that I'm at war, that all of us are at war with this species that intends to take over the planet, if not replace us. I also, again, I have to point out, I think our military is at war, and I think our military knows this. Now, also, this would substantiate some of the whistleblowers that have gone to people like Linda Moulton Howe, or some of the people that are not talked about by Richard Dolan. Okay, it would also validate some of the experiences that I heard from Jay Widener, because the military will go and tell these people some things, and they'll tell them just out of sheer frustration and fear, because the military is engaged in a war that is unlike any other kind of war they've ever even thought of engaging. Okay, because they can't do things. You can't go and shoot holes in these guys. You can't betray even that you know you're being invaded, because it might cause them to change their patterns of activity. Yet you've got to be really careful, and you've got to think like fifth and sixth dimensional chess in a lot of these things, about what might happen if the aliens respond this way, and you have no clue as to what is motivating their responses, because they are not like humans. They're not like humans in a way that is so fundamentally different that we might as well be at war with, intelligent rocks that would sneak up in the middle of the night and clunk you over the head or something, right? And we'd have no reason as to why the rocks are doing. We can't even talk to the rocks. We can't even find out which rock is sentient until they actually get up and knock you over the head in the middle of the night, and then it's too late. So this is a kind of battles that our military is fighting. And I think a lot of the actions in the secret space program, in the unacknowledged projects that are hidden in the holes in the ground, are all going towards this war that we're under. It also explains the 10 to 100 times amounts of money that we spend for security and secrecy over the amount of money we're spending on reverse engineering their technology. Because we don't really need this level of secrecy if it's only us humans that we're worried about. But we would need super levels of security to keep our weapons, or even our thinking about this invasion, absolutely out of the heads of the insects and their minions, if indeed our military thought we were at war with them. So the military is spending money as though we are at war with these space aliens, and they're doing everything they can to keep their strategies and tactics hidden from our population so that the space aliens don't find out about it.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Earth. It's a trip.
Yeah. It's like welcome to Earth. Now we got to figure out how we can dance with these guys, right?
It's dance time. And a great question from the audience here is, Clif, who's running the AI system, and is that going to be used for us or against us?
Okay, so AI is not as people think. There's no disembodied artificial intelligence that can latch onto your mind or get you or any of this kind of stuff. AI is one of our greater tools. AI is going to help us. There's software programs that are going to help us with our alien problem. Believe me, the technology is not anti-human, but we're going to have a weird level of information in order to defeat these guys. Because bear in mind, if we could blow out, say that we knew that there were 5 spaceships sitting out there right now circling the sun, and we could sign them up with our nukes and we could blow the hell out of them. That doesn't end our problem, because there might be 10 or 20 million invaders already here. And we've got to deal with them, because those invaders are going to keep going with their plans because they're telepathically driven to do so and have no other option. And we don't know what their plan is or why they're doing it. We can make all kinds of inferences I've got notes and notes and notes, pages of these things about, you know, how to interact with them, how to plan war, you know, strategic tests, so we can start probing them to figure out what's going on without letting them know that we know. All different kinds of things about this alien invasion. And it's like, basically, we're all in it now. As soon as you recognize you're in this war, you've got to participate, because they're damn pod people coming to replace us.
So what if you're the pod people and you don't want to, like what if you wake up and you're like, damn it, I'm one of them?
Okay, so you're correct. Now, even I have compassion for these hybrids, okay, because they're partially us. They're partially human. They're telepathic. They're able to control us, but they are our cousins at least, but they're the direct, you know, our DNA taken and stuff done to it. So I have compassion for them. And I think that there are things we could do, for instance, technically, that might build a barrier like the 5G that would prevent them from being controlled by the insects. Then who knows? They might willingly join us in fighting the insects, okay, because they might be free. We do know from the abductees that certain things happen at certain times that really freak out the insects and their minions. And these things that happen are usually humans or hybrids even. Well, let's deal with just the hybrids. The hybrids will get episodes in which they're uncontrollable and have to be, we would think of as like mentally sedated, okay? Where they don't give them drugs or anything, but a bunch of the insects get around them, or a bunch of the minions get around them and dampen down what's going on in that hybrid's mind. What's going on in their hybrid mind is the reaction that's going on from the hormones being unbalanced, building up, you know, within their vagus nervous system. And these beings have no skills in dealing with these hormone storms, right? So I don't mean it this way, okay? But I want to give you an analogy that most people will grasp and understand, but this is in no way being denigrating or anything like that, right? Even though it might seem somewhat funny. These beings, that the hybrids that have these episodes and bust out and become uncontrollable, it's as though they've got like an intestinal flu, and they've got massive diarrhea, and they can't contain it. And there's just this anxiety in them, and because of their nerves trying to get this stuff out of the body, because the gallbladder and the liver and the intestines feel it's bad, and there's all kinds of bacteria in there, and your body just wants to get it out, right? It's like a dog that's been in the house too long and needs to go out and get empty and hasn't been allowed to. It's got that franticness to it. And this franticness is actually part of the vagus nervous system that is responding by dealing with serotonin and dopamine in particular ways. Bear in mind, the vagus nervous system is how the serotonin goes from your gut up to your brain and vice versa. It's the communications channel of these hormones. And so the early hybrids had vagus nervous systems that were more robust than the insects would have liked for control purposes. So it proves to me that the insects are not infallible. They made a mistake. They make mistakes all the time, even though they don't in their own mind admit that they're mistakes. They don't even have the concept of a mistake or an error, by the way. But under those circumstances, the hybrid would become uncontrollable because of a hormonal storm going on in them. You know, sort of like PMS, right? Where you just can't deal with the hormones, and you start sweating and all of this kind of stuff. And humans experience this at various different times in our lives, and we have ways of coping and so on, but these guys don't even have a clue. And so they would dampen it down mentally. It doesn't go away, it just removes it at that point. And so they tried to engineer calmer, gentler, more easily controlled hybrids, and they had long since abandoned reptiles. Reptiles were one of their first attempts at this. Only reptiles never got them anywhere because they don't have a vagus nervous system at all. And the vagus nervous system, in my mind, is part of in my conclusions, is part of the necessary complex of things you've got to have in order to be able to have a soul go into a body, because of the way that the vagus nervous system connects the seat of consciousness, which is the pancreas, with the rest of the organs. And it's a long, involved discussion there.
Yeah, this is amazing. And it makes me wonder also about the stratospheric aerosol injections that we've been seeing, the cloud seeding, and a question from the audience. This is a question that somebody asked. Are they terraforming the planet? Are they geoengineering the planet? Is it them?
Okay, it's being done as a result of the invasion, but I don't know that it's being done because the aliens have got control of our military system and thus are doing it that way. The simplest explanation is that there is a means of disruption that is delivered via the chemtrails that dampens down on the ability to mentally control us from the space aliens. It may just be an attempt that way. Okay, it certainly has nothing to do with global warming at all. But the kind of crystalline metallic elements that they're putting up there, the military may think that it shuts down on the ability of the space aliens to do something. So it may be a strategic move that way. I do not believe that the terraforming aspects of things are coming through the chemtrails.